Hi everybody, welcome back to the Chiquel YouTube channel. My name is Amanda and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about which wig brands I find to be the best for specific things and specific features on a wig. So I'm about to give you guys a lot of random information about brands, so make sure you guys are ready to take notes. Or you could always just watch this video back too. Before I dive into it, I'm just going to remind you to please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel where you can learn even more about alternative hair. Okay, now before I start giving you all the info that's in my brain right now, I just want to make sure you know that everything I share with you today is based on my experience and my own opinion. It's not necessarily like fact, set in stone, this is the way it is. It's just based on my preferences and what I think. So some of you may have different opinions than me, and that's totally fine. I'd still love to hear what you guys think in the comments below, if you agree, if you disagree, if maybe there's a brand that you're really into that you want to share more about. We'd love to hear it because, again, my opinion is not the only opinion out here. All right, let's start with sizing. So in general, all of the wig brands that you find are gonna make average caps. Some of the wig brands make petite and some of them make large as well. But overall, they all make average caps. However, the funny thing about it is that the term average means something different for each brand. Some brands are gonna fit bigger than average. Some brands average is gonna fit smaller than average. And some brands average is gonna fit average. So I'm gonna tell you which brands to kind of look for if you want bigger, average, or smaller. So if you're someone like me who measures petite, who has a hard time finding a lot of actual petite size wigs because there aren't a ton, to be honest, then you can start looking at some average sized caps from certain brands. My favorite ones to look for would be the brand Ellen Villa. Ellen Villa tends to fit a little bit smaller than average for the most part, especially if you're looking at their hand-tied caps. Now, this isn't the case for every single wig of theirs. You're gonna find that some of them will fit truer to average than others, but typically speaking, Ellen Villa does fit a bit smaller than average. Another wig brand that I have always found to fit smaller than average, especially within the circumference, is Noriko. I've always found Noriko to fit really tight around my head. However, there seems to be a little bit more extra bulk within the cap. Now again, this isn't true for every single wig Noriko makes, but generally speaking, they mostly tend to fit below average. Now, when I say below average, I'm meaning more of like a 21-inch circumference, 20.5-inch circumference, somewhere around there. All right, if you are someone who fits a bit bigger than average, so maybe like a 22.5-inch circumference, then you need to check out a brand like Estetica. Now again, this isn't true across the board for all of Estetica's wigs, but generally speaking, I have found that Estetica wigs are always quite large on me. The one I'm wearing right now, actually, Avalon, this is by Estetica. This one does fit me big. And I mean, technically, I probably shouldn't be wearing a wig that fits like this because I am a petite size. But I find for me that adjusting those adjustable straps at the back to their tightest and even putting it back into a clip like this or a bun really helps with the security on me. Another brand that typically fits a little bit larger than average is Belle Tress. However, not their hand-tied caps. Their hand-tied caps fit a little smaller than average, but their open wefted caps, like their standard cap that they tend to use across the board, typically fit a little bit bigger than average. And another brand that I find to be average to maybe a little bit bigger than average is also Raquel Welch. I find this to be particularly true with a lot of their open wefted caps. Now, if you are looking into Raquel Welch's hand-tied caps or partially hand-tied caps, those will fit more true to average. Now, if you are typically just an average size all across the board, some brands that I would recommend would be John Renault and Gabor. I have found that I've had the most success with those brands being most consistently average amongst most of their caps. Now, of course, those are not all of the brands we sell. We do sell more, but those are ones that I've had a lot of experience with and that I feel comfortable sharing with you. Okay, now let's talk about lace fronts. Lace fronts are the one thing on a wig right at your hairline, where that's going to give you the illusion of growth right from your hairline. Some wig brands are really good at them and some of them are not as good. And you'll find that the ones that aren't as good are when the knots on the lace from the fibers are just really big. And it turns out that you can really see the knotting. Now on one like this one's actually not bad at all. This one is Estetica, Avalon by Estetica, and these knots are actually really nice. There are some brands that I find to be a little bit inconsistent with their lace fronts, but the one brand that I can wholeheartedly say does a really excellent job with their lace fronts would be Raquel Welch. So if you are someone who's looking for that really realistic hairline, definitely go check out Raquel Welch. One thing I can say about all brands though is that anytime you are wearing a piece with a darker color, so either you're wearing, a brown or a black wig, or maybe you're wearing a wig that has a lighter wig that has roots, the darker the color, the more evident the knotting will be on your lace. But again, even so, a brand like Raquel Welch still, I find, does the best job at making those knots as fine as they can and as undetectable as they can. Okay, just so I can give you an example of Raquel Welch's lace fronts and what I mean, this is Wavy Day by Raquel Welch, and this is their lace front. I find it to be really quite undetectable. And now something that they always do whenever they have, a darker color with highlights or maybe a rooted color with blonde highlights, they always bring that lighter piece forward to the front. See how it's lighter in the front? So that the knotting at the front is as light as it can be so that the knots are not as noticeable. So Raquel Welch always does that, which helps to create that really seamless hairline. An honorable mention for lace fronts though, I would have to say is Ellen Villa. I find that Ellen Villa tends to make their knots pretty small, and they do a great job of having lower density right at your lace front. Sometimes some brands get really high density and it makes it really hard to brush off your face and it looks like there's too much hair there at your hairline. But I find Ellen Villa does a really great job of keeping that density low right at your hairline. All right, let's say you are somebody who really loves big voluminous hair. Noriko loves the Permatease, and they always do a really good job of making it nice and soft and pillowy, and they put a lot in it. I'm gonna show you this wig right here. This is a Noriko wig, and this one is called Sandie. So Sandie has a lot of Permatease. So it's not hard Permatease and it doesn't feel like it's not movable. It's very fluffy, it's very workable, and it's just, they do a pretty good job of making it like a natural Permatease. So if you love the big hair, take a look at Noriko. This is in the color Auburn Sugar Rooted, by the way. I'll get into some sunlight. It's a nice medium brown auburn color with a bit of blonde in it as well. And then we do have some rooting happening. Okay, now if you are the opposite of wanting big voluminous hair and you want a really low profile look, really toned down, you're not into the Permatease, like the big poofy stuff, then you're gonna want to look at a couple brands. I definitely suggest Ellen Villa and Belle Tress. I have a Belle Tress wig right here. This one is Dolce & Dolce 23, and I'm showing this one because there is no Permatease in this. See how flat it lays? There's no Permatease, so it's gonna not be big and poofy, and it's also not very high density. I look funny. But there's not a ton of hair on this. It's gonna feel like a really nice, natural density. And you're gonna find that typically across the board for the majority of Belle Tress pieces, they are gonna be a bit lower density and they are gonna have either minimal to almost no Permatease. And this is the same for Ellen Villa. I find that Ellen Villa at times often can go even lower density than Belle Tress. So this isn't to say that other brands don't make low density pieces or zero Permatease. This is just, typically speaking, most of their pieces are low density and have minimal Permatease. Now, if you want to be sure that you are getting a piece that has no Permatease in it, then make sure you're looking at hand-tied caps. Hand-tied caps look a little something like this. So they're completely hand-sewn by a person. And whenever you have any hand-sewn component of a wig, even including the top monofilament part, you're not going to have any Permatease at all. So across the brands, if you're looking at Jon Renau, Raquel Welch, Belle Tress, Ellen Villa, any brand that does hand-tied caps, you're not going to have any Permatease, no matter what brand it is. And I find hand-tied caps in general just help make the hair move a little bit more freely, a little bit more naturally, and they lay a little bit flatter. This wig I'm wearing right now is called Upstage by Raquel Welch, and it's actually been completely straightened. This used to have some sort of more body and curl to it, but I've since straightened it out. Okay, now on the topic of hand-tied caps, I do have an absolute favorite cap that is, my favorite hand-tied cap out of them all, and it's Belle Tress's hand-tied caps. Now that of course is my personal preference, and a big reason why I do love the Belle Tress hand-tied caps is because they tend to fit a little bit smaller than average, especially within your circumference. So for me, as someone who is a petite size, I really appreciate that because it hugs my head and fits my circumference really well. And not only do they fit someone like me really well, Belle Tress also has added some silicone to their ear tabs, so they also feel really secure. That silicone right there is just like an extra little touch to help it feel like it's gonna stay in place. Now, as much as I love Belle Tress hand-tied caps, I also really do enjoy Jon Renau's hand-tied caps, especially their light caps. Their light caps come in several of their popular wigs, and their light caps just mean that it's a hand-tied cap, monofilament top, lace front that goes from ear to ear, as well as silicone ear tabs and a silicone nape. So their light caps are super secure, super comfortable, and I do find that they fit more around the average size. And I should also mention that I do really love Raquel Welch's hand-tied caps as well. So the one I'm wearing right now, of course, is a Raquel Welch hand-tied cap, and it's quite comfortable. You will find that any hand-tied cap is going to be extremely comfortable, very luxurious feeling. Okay, let's talk about fibers. So synthetic and heat-defiant fibers. If you are someone who's really into the heat-defiant fibers, then my favorite for that is Belle Tress. So again, this is a Belle Tress wig. Their heat-defiant fibers are so just buttery soft and smooth. I find they last a little bit longer and sort of come back a little bit easier once you apply heat on it. I just find that it's sturdy, soft, buttery, and I just really enjoy them. I also find that they don't get quite as clumpy as some other heat-defiant fibers. I don't mind Raquel Welch's heat-defiant fibers, but I find that they do get a little bit clumpy and sort of tacky feeling more quickly than Belle Tress. Now, if we're talking about synthetic fibers, I find that something you should know is that synthetic fibers across the board, no matter what brand they are, they're going to be shinier than heat-friendly fibers. That's just the way they are. Their synthetic fibers typically are shiny. And I seem to find that the synthetic fibers are a little bit inconsistent amongst each brand. Sometimes I get a wig from a certain brand and it doesn't look that shiny, but then I get another wig from that same brand and it's like super shiny. So I don't know, I find it touch and go with some synthetics. One thing I will tell you though is that if you don't want a synthetic fiber to be as shiny, definitely look for the more dimensional colors. And I often find that wavy wigs are less blindingly shiny than just like straight one color wigs. In terms of the softness of the fibers and the durability of them, I've had a really good experience with Jon Renau synthetic fibers. I also have enjoyed Renee of Paris synthetic fibers, but I do know that many people across the board seem to have differing views on which synthetics that they like the best. Okay, let's say you are looking for some really trendy styles, some really with it styles. I find that I typically tend to gravitate towards Raquel Welch. They're always coming out with really great trendy styles. And I also really love Jon Renau for that as well. If you're someone who really loves wavy pieces or curly pieces, Belle Tress makes a ton of mid-length or longer wavy or curly wigs. If you're someone who loves pixies and wants more of a sophisticated look, then I would really check out Ellen Villa. Ellen Villa has a ton of different pixie cuts of varying styles. There's just a lot to choose from, but just keep in mind that her brand does fit typically a little bit smaller than average. So before you purchase, I always want to make sure you guys know to go to YouTube and check out reviews of other women wearing these wigs, because more often than not, they will tell you how it fits them, which will then help you out a little bit. All right, I think I've given you all the information that's just been like lingering in my head. I'm sorry if it was a little bit all over the place. I just feel like I had all this information to just spit out and tell you. If you have any other questions though, maybe something I didn't cover that you're curious about within the brands, go ahead and ask it in the comments, and I might be able to help you out. But for now, I'm gonna head out for the day. I hope you found this a little bit helpful. I know wig wearing and starting off your journey in the alternative hair world is really difficult. You don't really know where to start, but hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of maybe what more closely you can look into. I will see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.